Anna had always been the one to give. As a nurse, her life revolved around others, helping those who were ill, comforting the brokenhearted, and making sure the terrified patients under her care felt safe in the sterile and sometimes frightening world of a hospital. She was passionate about her work, proud of it even, but deep inside, a quiet sadness often crept into her thoughts. She didn't know why, but it felt as though there was an empty space inside her, something that couldn't be filled no matter how much she gave. Despite spending so much of her life making sure others were all right, she never quite felt all right herself. At 32, Anna had grown accustomed to her solitary life. She lived alone in a modest apartment, where the quiet was deafening when she returned home after long shifts. Unlike her colleagues, who went home to families or loved ones, she was alone, often eating her dinner in front of the TV before going to bed early, knowing that the next day would be more of the same. Her parents lived far away, and her social circle had dwindled to almost nothing over the years. She had friends, yes, but none of them were truly close. She had always prioritized her job over personal connections, and now, when she thought about it, she was unsure whether that was a choice she regretted. Most days, Anna would push the feeling of loneliness aside. There was always something to do at work, always someone who needed her. She threw herself into her role as a nurse, taking pride in knowing that she was making a difference in the lives of others. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. She would watch families come together, mothers with their children, and couples supporting each other through difficult times. And although she was genuinely happy for them, a part of her couldn't help but feel an ache in her chest, a yearning for a connection, for someone to lean on, someone to share the little moments with. One particularly difficult morning, after a long, exhausting night shift, Anna left the hospital feeling drained, both physically and emotionally. She had spent hours tending to a patient whose condition worsened, doing everything she could to help, only to see them pass away. It had been a hard shift, one that had left her heart heavy and her mind clouded. She needed a break, a moment of peace to gather her thoughts. Stepping outside into the cool morning air, she took a deep breath, trying to clear the fog in her mind. The streets were filled with the early bustle of city life, commuters rushing to work, joggers out for their morning exercise, and parents walking their children to school. Everything felt so distant to Anna. The city moved around her, but she felt as though she was stuck in a bubble, separated from it all. She walked slowly toward a nearby park, the quietest place she could think of, hoping to find some comfort in the solitude. She found an empty bench beneath a large tree, its branches providing a little shelter from the sun. Sitting down, she closed her eyes for a moment, letting the cool breeze wash over her. She allowed herself to relax, her tense muscles starting to loosen. But as she sat there, the familiar feeling of emptiness crept back in. She watched the children playing, the families together, the couples sharing quiet moments, and once again, she wondered, will I ever have this? The question was always there in the back of her mind, one she didn't know how to answer. She thought about motherhood, what it would be like to have a child of her own, to have someone to love unconditionally, to have that feeling of a family to come home to. But the thought was quickly followed by another, I don't even have anyone to share this with. Her heart sank, and she quickly wiped away a tear that had escaped her eye. She knew she had made sacrifices for her career, and although she didn't regret those choices, sometimes, in moments like these, she wondered if she had made a mistake. Just as she was about to stand up, trying to shake the sadness off, she noticed something strange out of the corner of her eye. A small dog, a golden retriever, was darting across the street, moving with an urgency that caught Anna's attention. The dog wasn't barking or causing a scene, it was simply running, its movements quick and purposeful. Anna couldn't help but watch as the dog made its way across the street, narrowly avoiding traffic, and headed straight for the entrance of the hospital. There was something oddly compelling about the way the dog moved, something that made Anna feel like it was trying to tell her something. Her curiosity piqued, Anna stood up and followed the dog, her footsteps quickening as she tried to catch up. The dog moved with determination, and as Anna drew closer, she noticed something strange. The dog was carrying something in its mouth. It was a small, blue blanket, tightly clenched between its teeth. When it reached the entrance of the hospital, the dog paused, waiting for Anna to catch up. It turned and looked at her, its eyes almost pleading, as if asking for help. Confused but compelled to act, Anna approached the dog, her heart pounding. "What do you have there, little one?" she whispered, bending down to gently take the blanket from the dog's mouth. As she unfolded it, her breath caught in her throat. Inside the blanket, wrapped in layers of cloth, was a tiny baby. The infant was so small and fragile, its skin pale and translucent, and it was clear that the child needed immediate medical attention. Anna's hands trembled as she carefully lifted the baby into her arms, instinctively cradling it against her chest. She glanced around in a daze, but the dog remained close by, watching her with eyes that seemed to know exactly what to do. Anna's thoughts raced. How had this baby ended up here? Where were its parents? And why had the dog brought it to her? Without wasting another moment, Anna rushed inside, her heart racing in her chest. She called out for help, her voice steadied despite the shock that gripped her. Her colleagues quickly gathered around, and they sprang into action. They worked together to stabilize the infant, and as Anna assisted in the efforts, her mind was still spinning. How had the dog known? She couldn't help but wonder. The baby's arrival seemed almost fated, like a twist of destiny. Hours passed, and the baby, whom they named Ethan, was slowly stabilized, but the mystery of how he had ended up on Anna's doorstep remained. The investigation revealed a heartbreaking truth. The dog, Max, had been with the baby's parents when they tragically passed away in a car accident. Max, loyal and protective, had refused to leave the baby's side. He had carried the child across the streets, through the park, and finally to the one person he believed could help, Anna. As Anna held Ethan in her arms, her emotions were a swirl of confusion, awe, and deep gratitude. She didn't know what to make of it, but something inside her knew that this little boy was meant to be a part of her life. Max, too, had become her companion, a silent guardian by her side as she navigated the challenges of caring for the baby. Over the next few months, Anna's life changed in ways she had never expected. She fought for Ethan's adoption, navigating the lengthy and often frustrating legal process, but never once did she doubt that this was the right thing to do. Ethan had found his way into her life, and she would not let him go. With Max by her side, they became a family, one that was built on love, sacrifice, and the strange twists of fate that brought them together. Anna's heart, once hollow and aching, was now full. She had found the connection she had longed for, not in the way she had imagined, but in a way that was more meaningful than she could have ever known. As she held Ethan in her arms and looked down at Max, she realized that family wasn't always what you planned for. It was love, pure, unconditional love, and it had come to her in the most unexpected of ways. Anna was no longer alone. She had found her place in the world, and it was filled with the warmth of a new, unbreakable bond.